Hi, welcome to State of Search by DFWSEM, and thanks for joining. We are looking at 19 years of search engine marketing. Your State of Search by DFWSEM board. I'm Kevin Adams, President. Vice President Tim Shane. Treasurer is Mike Stewart. Secretary is Julie Jones. VP of State of Search and Hospitality is Chris O'Connor. VP of Membership and Registration, Casey Marquis. VP of Sponsorship, Shelley Rory. VP of Communications, Bill Allen. And Board at Large, Rachel Black, Jenna Williams, and Jeff Ferguson. If you want to participate on a committee with us, talk to a board member or email membership@dfwsem.org. So now until July 31st, we have an offer. So State of Search is coming the 13th and 14th of November. You can go to stateofsearch.org. Virtual tickets for the time being is $50 off. You can get them for $175 a piece. And in-person, virtual tickets are $25 off. And the in-person are $50 off. You can get those for $322 right now. Again, that's through July 31st. There is no coupon code. Just it should be automatically applied. What we learned, all kinds of anything about digital marketing, SEO, paid, different strategies. Let us know what you think at the end of the meeting or afterwards. Fill out our meeting survey, dfw.sem.org/virtual-meeting-survey. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat. All right. And I will hand off to Casey.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's special presentation. We try to do what we can for you every month, which is bring the highest caliber of speakers we can to elucidate you on all the happenings in the local enterprise and non-enterprise SEO spheres. And we have got a fantastic speaker for you this month. Personal friend of mine, great guy, great family. Fantastic knowledge base. Steve, take a bow. Steve Wiidman, who's with the Wiidman Group. How you doing, Steve?
Thanks, Casey. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Steve is going to be focusing today on how to scale SEO for multi-location brands. He's talked all over the world. He and I go way back from PubCon and other days. We were even stranded at the top of a volcano together at one point. So that's a great
story. I
story.
was stranded.
Whenever you get a chance, you just have Steve tell you that story. It involves being stranded, how he was stranded, and how it was a strain on his marriage. We'll just leave it at that specifically. But Steve has got a great presentation tonight. And without any further ado, Steve, thanks for joining us. Please take it away.
Oh, thank you so much. And thanks for having me today. Even before we got started, we got to chit-chat a little bit about Texas and heat and all the things that are kind of going on in the world. And I reminded everyone of my one visit to Billy Bob's where my daughter and I got to play some pool. What I didn't share was the story of when I lost. She made me put on that clown costume and do the bowl picture. So now she's got blackmail pictures of me on that bowl at the entry of Billy Bob's, in the whole clown outfit. So I'll be haunted by that forever, but it was probably one of the most fun and amazing evenings of the entire tour we took at Texas that week. So thank you for having me. And as Casey mentioned, I'll be talking about multi-location search and how we scale it. Some of the content might be a little beginning level, but I promise we will get into more complicated and advanced search. But I didn't know what the full array of audience expertise was in search. So when we jump in, if there are a few slides in the beginning, we're like, yeah, duh, right? Just go ahead and blow it off for a few minutes because I promise it does get better. So it's about 40 minutes. I'll dive in. We'll keep some of our questions to the end by all means. If you have questions come up while I'm going, get the chat going. We'll start compiling them. And then at the end, we'll go through as many as we can. Some of my experience before I pull up my presentation in multi-location includes working with brands such as Public Storage, Meineke Car Care, Skechers. We work with restaurant chains, currently chains that include Applebee's and IHOP, and just some really fun, exciting brands in multi-location. And it's been quite an adventure for the last 25 years in search. So hopefully you'll enjoy some of the experience I'll share and some of the case studies and examples, and you'll find this as nerdy and fun as I do. So I'm going to click share and we will get the show on the road. All right, multi-level local SEO is what we're going to be talking about, multi-location and franchise. So my intro, as I mentioned, if you were in SEO 10 years ago, you might remember me as SEO Steve. It's one of my handles. I was in a lot of the different forums and groups as everyone else was, writing information products. I also teach at UC San Diego and Cal State Fullerton. I did co-author SEO Strategy and Skills with Professor Scott Cowley. I think some 40 universities now are incorporating our 15 chapters of juicy nerdiness into their curriculum for online marketing courses. Definitely love to test and explore and research algorithms and ranking and reverse engineer why a page or a business listing is performing well. And our team here is about 9 of us now, and each one with an expertise in a specific discipline of search, and me kind of the jack of all trades. So there's my background. So here's our objectives today. What do we want to really kind of get out of today's session on multi-location? One is how we can scale our data accuracy signals, which I'll get into as we start talking about platforms and how important data really is to your local and multi-location search strategy. Second is we're going to be looking specifically at how we scale some of the on-page signals related to page level optimization. We did a really crazy fun study in 2021, just at the end of 21, and we've got some really interesting insights that can tell you what percentage competitive advantage a focal point will have versus something else, to give you at least some arsenal to go to the boss and say, this is why we need hyperlocal content. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. And then off-page visibility factors, business citations, listings, links. I'm going to show you some really fun examples of what worked well to help attract, earn, and get some really powerful links without having to do cold calling or guest blog posting or private blog networks or blasting data all over the net. Really authentic white hat kind of technique that you'll hopefully get a kick out of. And the last one is search behavior signals. And I do get a lot of flack on this one. I've done quite a bit of testing back in the day. I think it was 2005, 2006. My boss, Terry Cox at Disney, basically challenged me to rank for the term SEO expert if I was going to have a say in moving Adventures by Disney from Flash to HTML. So I went for it, created a page, took a few months, got to the first page of Google. He wasn't impressed. I had to go back, get people to search, click, interact with my listing for long enough that I was able to get that top position. Got it, was able to take on some of that role and responsibility, but didn't realize what a big deal it was going to be ranking #1 for SEO expert. And that was the catalyst to my years of having some really successful campaigns and clients. And after a while, I realized, after a few people told me in the industry, hey, that's kind of a braggart thing to do, I got rid of it. So if you go look for it now, it doesn't exist. But you might still find it on archive.org, or ask me later and I'll show you the page. So anyway, I know that these search behavior signals are important because I've done enough testing to show that if we're chosen more often than the competition, there is an inference over time that we're more important. And I'm going to show you some ways that we can boost our CTR, both in the map packs and organic listings, and have it sustainable, not gaming search results, but actually working to improve the appearance of our search. So why do we care? This is going back to, fundamentals. You already use a lot of these search tools and do a lot of these searches, but this is something you can use. I use it when I'm talking to somebody who's relatively unfamiliar with search optimization. I give an example of just restaurants in Pigeon Forge. You can see the map pack over here. I went into Google's keyword planner and just pulled out 2 examples, restaurants in Pigeon Forge being one of them, and restaurants near me, where I targeted my search from Pigeon Forge. Take those 2 different searches together, and it only encompasses one keyword, not all the other search terms that we can consider, such as the type of food we have, steak restaurant, steakhouse near me, takeout, delivery, catering, all the different things, lunch specials that people would be looking for us, the style of food, American food near me, so on and so forth. This is just one example to show, a client that, hey, with just this one keyword alone, 67,000 searches per month in Google. And then we think about the number of visitors we can have with an aggressive click-through rate goal, which we may never meet, but as agency owners and as SEOs, having that as a continuous goal gives us, basically a job opportunity, because we're going to keep working toward better click-through rates over time. through richer results and through stronger titles and meta descriptions. With an aggressive 5% conversion rate for non-branded search terms that we want to go after, we could get 676 potential orders. And if our average order value is around $32, then we're looking at $21,000 in incremental revenue from one keyword, not even counting steak near me, takeout restaurant near me, et cetera, et cetera. What does that mean for the business? A potential $250,000 in revenue is on the table if the client's willing to invest in SEO and make it work. So why do we care about scaling local search if we're an enterprise brand? Because one location could be a potential $250,000 in revenue of what's available out there. So use this as an example, a case study, a workflow to try to produce a forecast that's convincing to a potential employer or client. It works. All right. So our key performance indicators as we start talking about local search and getting into multi-location, the number one, as we talked about before, we're talking about data and the importance of our data. So data accuracy is really kind of the number one. For stakeholders, they care about the traffic and revenue, but for us as SEOs, we know to get there, we need to make sure our data is accurate everywhere it needs to be. We also want to make sure our local and organic keyword rankings are being measured and tracked and segmented appropriately. And our segments, categories, tags, however you're doing it, we like to use business objectives. So off-premises, I mentioned takeout and delivery, is one example of a content segment. So we'll tag those separately so that we can monitor and check the performance over time. Our data placement growth, that means web directories, business directories, sites that will that are local or regional that would list our name, address, phone number. Every month we want those things improving. And then reputation. And that's going to be making sure, and we'll get into it a little bit more, that the quality, quantity, and velocity of ratings and reviews is always front of mind for every person in the business, from the host to the server to the manager. Everyone's involved in thinking about reputation and paying attention to how we're doing versus the competition. So this is what I would use as KPIs, and I'll show you a KPI tracker at the end that we could use. As I mentioned before, in terms of what our objectives are, data being the first and at the center of that nucleus. If our data is wrong, it doesn't matter how good our reputation is or how good our website SEO is. If Google can't confirm that we're legitimately in the place that we legitimately are, then it's probably not going to rank us well on the map pack. So it's really important to make sure our business data is accurate. So how do we do that? How do we scale our accuracy if we have 1,000 locations or 10,000 locations? The mom and pop shops, right? They could just go to Localese and, Axiom or Data Axle now, and Data Axle, Localese, and Foursquare, I think, are the big ones. And we'll talk about those just in a second. They can go to those sites for $50 or whatever and list their business. And a lot of the web directories will consume that data, and you'll see their business data be basically correct. But for a larger business, that gets really, really expensive if you're doing it manually, and it gets to be a little exhaustive. And I'll show you just how exhaustive. So we work with data management platforms. It's the way to streamline, simplify, and have a single source of truth to make our multi-location strategy as simple as possible. Here's some examples of a few. There's also new ones that have been coming out recently that that I think are interesting. I like to kind of keep an eye on all of them. Our friend Dwayne is over there at Yext. We love him. He's cool. We also have some friends in some of these other places. You might recognize a few of the names. All right, so getting into number one, the most important part of our multi-location data, multi-location SEO strategy revolves around data. And the way that we're going to prioritize how we manage that data is going to start with those business databases. And I'll have another slide just on those in a moment. Then the search engines, and search engines are Google and Bing and Apple, right? Maybe right now they're using Google. They got a good contract, but now they're doing Apple Spotlight search and some other things. So we don't really know what's going to happen this year. Apple could have their own. Of course, there is Apple Maps Connect as well, which is where we get into navigation engines. We also have here and other navigation databases that we want to make sure our name, address, and phone number are in. Our local social is like our Yelp, our Foursquare, our TripAdvisors. Industry directories, if you're a lawyer and you've got multiple locations, you're going to be thinking about lawyers.com, Avo, Justia, FindLaw. If you're in food and dining, you're going to make sure you're in Open Table and Restaurant G and all those different industry directories. City specific, this is where we kind of break out of the data management platforms capabilities. This is where we do have to get a little bit creative and create a long-term game plan to try our best to make sure that we're in all of those regional directories, or we have to empower our location managers and owners to do some of that grunt work themselves and give them some training. Help us help you, and then let them go out and do that dirty work. And that means perhaps anaheim.org/businesses or la.gov/business directory, whatever it happens to be. Those are regional city specific directories. And then there's these general directories at the very end. You could almost erase those. Most of those websites don't really get any traffic anyway. We put some UTM codes on our URL and we tested them. They don't really get a lot of traffic from real people. I don't know how they're still around, but the merchant circles and hot frogs and mantas and get faves, don't invest a lot of time and energy into those. They're not really going to drive referral business for you. They're not relevant to your industry. They're not regional. They're national with, regional subdomains or whatever. It's not really going to give you a lot of value. All right. So as I mentioned, the three main data sources, the Data Axle, Newstar, Foursquare, and there's several others. These are just kind of the big three. And we found in every single attempt to test and experiment with using one, using two, using all three, that when we use all three of them, we do see higher rankings, especially in maps, and accelerated rankings where we see those positions move up much faster. So really important to make sure that we're in all three of those places. And if you are multi-location, you're doing it manually, it can be one heck of an adventure, especially because, as I mentioned, there's so many other places we have to manage that business information. So what's the alternative? It's not using those data management providers. Instead, you're probably going to need an army of employees managing each of those directories. And whenever there's a business change, a phone number change, an address change, you've got to go to every single one of those destinations we just talked about, the databases, the search engines, the nav engines, the social, local social, the city and general directories, and update all that information manually. Apple Maps Connect, one at a time. Why go through that? So get the bulk pricing savings. Find one of these platforms that works best for you. Try to get the best rate you can, and keep your data management streamlined. It also gives you a single source of truth. So if, when, and ever you need to pull data for a new directory or new bulk listing site, or if you're doing global updates on UTM parameters in your URLs, it gives you one single place to do all of that. And again, you have to manage all those listings across all these different places. There's also no field conversion when you're doing it manually. So if you've got a list or a spreadsheet or a Google Sheet of all your locations, you're going to have to change the heading on every single time you submit to a different directory. You're going to have to change your headings, and sometimes your formatting of hours and those different fields have to be formatted differently for each of those different data providers or different data sources or publishers. So keep that in mind. That can be a lot of work to do over and over and over again. You also don't get any aggregated analytics. So if you want to see a roll up of 4,000 locations in Google Business Profiles, it's going to be one heck of an adventure in Supermetrics and Looker Studio or whatever to try to make that happen. Whereas these platforms have already done the work to allow you to see aggregated data in terms of how many phone call clicks we had, how many reviews and ratings per location, and being able to trend those things over time and do comparisons of last month versus the same time last year. So really good reporting is available at scale, and being able to see that in aggregate is really difficult to get manually. And the last part's that Google Maps API fee that can get really, really expensive really fast. So, price it around. And I do have some questions that you would want to ask. And we are sticking to the data first because it is so important, but we're almost through the data piece of it, I promise. Here's the questions you want to ask, whether it's Yext or Sochi or Rio or whomever. First one is, how much money am I going to be saving by going through you versus going directly to Data Axle, Foursquare, or somewhere else? How does your system compare to others? What's your competitive advantage? What about the cost savings on map API fees? What does it look like through you versus, me, paying what my current rate is? You also want to ask about directories. It's tons of bullets in here that you can go through. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but you get the idea. There's a lot of questions that you can ask that one, let them know that you're informed, and two, when you go to your key stakeholders, they'll know that you asked all the right questions to get the best rate and to choose the best provider based on what your needs are. All right, so that was data. Next is the on-page SEO signals. So we all know now that the nucleus of our local multi-location SEO cell is going to be around data accuracy. Now we want to make sure that we're saying the same thing on the pages that we have for every location that we're telling Google within the Google Business Profile. And we also want dual placement in the search results, not just in the maps, but we want web search as well. Somebody's looking at the maps and they go, oh, that's kind of interesting, and they decide to keep scrolling. Or what they see will be our location pages and maybe even some of our location subpages. So going back to that study that we performed in 2021, this involved about 101 food and dining chains. We took all the biggest ones, the Taco Bells, the McDonald's, the Starbucks, all the biggest brands, all the top performing brands that were doing really well. And we want to know what makes them tick. And so from our research, we came up with a data set that was based, as I mentioned, around competitiveness, so that when you go to your boss and they say, why do we need hyperlocal content? You can tell them, because we have 107% competitive advantage if we can apply some hyperlocal content to our page. And I'll talk about that is here in a few minutes. You probably already know, but I'll give you some examples. Location photos, 84% competitive advantage. So now we're not just saying, hey, if we do this, we can get higher rankings. Now you're saying, if we do this, we'll have an X% competitive advantage over the competition. And that should help you, hopefully, give you the arsenal you need to be able to get buy-in to at least test a few locations and show them, the value in it. So here's that study down here. You can just click it and kind of scroll through. There's an infographic on it. And we've modeled all of the work that we've done based on that study. And so far, we've seen nothing but success. So here's that whole list of factors. As I mentioned, the whole goal was to get buy-in. You can see the factors that had an impact or were neutral are here. There are more on that study that showed a negative impact as well, but these are the ones that had positive impacts. You can see some things in here like directions link, fully loaded time, some tech things in there for us tech nerds, native first-party reviews, which we'll talk about. But that's the whole goal, is to be able to have something that we can go to our boss and say, this is why we need to do this. So here's the hyperlocal content. And if you want to see some examples of this, I think IHOP has some of our favorite examples. If you look at an IHOP location and you scroll to the bottom, you can see some really good localized content. I think hotels.com, you might be able to see the same thing, or booking.com, one of the two. They spend a lot of time trying to make as much unique content per page as possible. But that's the huge advantage, because what'll happen sometimes is if your page is basically the same across 2,000 locations, and the only thing that's different is, your name, address, and phone number, there's a possibility within Google Search Console that you'll see a lot of your URLs, your pages, in the not indexed because we chose a different canonical URL, right? It's a duplicate content challenge to work through. So the more unique content we can have per page, the more likely we are to not have to worry about that, and two, to rank higher in the search results. And what better way to get hyperlocal content than getting your customers to share their feedback? And I don't know for the life of me why more brands don't do that, but it's really, really easy to put a simple form on the page and to have somebody who does the intake and does the moderation of approving reviews that come in and ratings. And then down here on the bottom, you can see there's some areas here that we can put in some content that's specific to that location. You can also use ChatGPT or Bard for this now, or if you're playing around with some of the generative AI in Google Labs, which everyone should be doing, by the way. If you haven't gone to Google Labs and clicked the generative AI toggle button yet, then you shouldn't be in SEO, right? You've got to do that. You've got to check it out. Use your personal Gmail if you want to in a separate Chrome instance so that it doesn't conflict with your normal results for marketing purposes. But it's so much fun to explore and dig around in, and ask it algorithm questions. Ask it, the questions that the engineers probably haven't thought about filtering out yet. It's really kind of interesting. So here's how we use this to capture localized data. Instead of manually having people go out and look for the information manually, now we can just ask ChatGPT, what is the closest lake to IHOP in La Habra, California? And it'll tell us. What is the closest freeway? And it'll tell us. And then we can wordsmith that into our copy. So it's something like, enjoy a picnic lunch from IHOP by taking your food to Laguna Lake in Fullerton, near the California State Route 57 freeway. Now, what this does is it gives you a bit of hybrid of what would be just a completely unique page of content versus what you see here is more of a dynamic page. And the dynamic page allows us to take, in some cases, as many as 60, 80 fields that are unique to that location and inject them into a generic paragraph, such as this one. Enjoy a picnic lunch from IHOP by taking your food to, and then boom, you inject in that data as a data field. And that's a very simple, easy way to scale content, because just letting ChatGPT write content and having to read all of it and go through every single page one at a time, it makes it really difficult, especially with image and map embeds. It's just not a really easy thing to do. So we use data fields as sort of an entry point until we can get to a place, where we can trust AI to give us enough localized information and have somebody on the team to put the language and the voice of the brand on it before it just goes live. Really cool way to get that data quick, though. Native reviews, and this is going to be a hard one. It's been tough getting our clients to get buy-in on this because their customer service teams in many cases don't like collaborating with SEO people. We don't want to touch the marketing stuff. We just intake customer reviews and we feed that to key stakeholders. We don't have anything to do with it. So you've got to make friends with the customer service department or it might not work. But make friends with them, get them to dedicate a resource who can click accept on intakes that come in from those local pages. 4% isn't a huge amount, but it could be a tiebreaker for you. So that 4% could be worth it if you're a tiebreaker with another brand. Structured markup. There's a lot more we can do with structured markup. And I was surprised to see in that study that more weren't using it. I think after we did the study, we saw more adoption of structured markup, specifically in the local business item type and choosing the right subtype, so restaurant, legal service, etc. In organization, we're seeing more businesses put in, the references to the social media profile is same as, and we're seeing breadcrumb lists being adopted more too, so that search engines can have a better search appearance and the results using that breadcrumb schema and understand our site architecture a bit better. Some other things that we've been exploring are tools like WordLift, and using WordLift and working with their team enables us to tag specific words. So when we say, crepes or breakfast or waffles, we can basically reference Wikipedia in that term so that Google understands the meaning of words and help our pages to perform even better. So something to look into, schema.org/thing. We're seeing it being used a little bit more and more, but in our examples where we've tested it, it's really amplified our visibility and our rankings for really critical keywords. So here's some more examples of how it can affect our search appearance. This goes back to those days of the SEO expert example I gave earlier and trying to get more users to click our results. And we do that by standing out in the search results. The FAQ page markup that you can put on that page will enable you to get a couple extra rows. Seeing that a little bit less often, I'm sure you are too. Event markup, if you're a local business, you can do events every 6 months if you wanted to and still put that markup on there when the dates are and a direct link to where the event page is itself. It's a really cool way to get an extra link in the search results, get an extra row, and really stand out. Getting directions. It's almost silly not to have a get directions link on a local page. It's one of the first things the users are going to want to do is click get directions. 16% competitive advantage if you don't already have a get directions button. There were two that I'm going to show you in a few minutes that worked really well for a few restaurant chains. Custom location images. This can also be challenging. I remember with Skechers, the challenge was some of the Skechers locations were in very rough neighborhoods. And no matter how many times you tried to get a good picture of the location from the outside, it just never came out good. The inside looked great, but getting outside photos from where the area was, we just couldn't get a good picture. So I don't know that they ever rolled out location images, but if you can do it, if you can pull it off, if you can get location images professionally done, perhaps even through a Google 360 photographer, and that's going to give you an edge, 84% edge, by making sure, again, that every page has images that are specific to that location. Supportive content. Now this is a fun one, because this is something we did in 2014 with Meineke. We said, hey, what if every single location had its own sub pages for each of the different services, like oil change and reviews, right? Meineke reviews, which was a challenge from an online reputation standpoint, because you imagine auto repair shops don't always get great reviews. So when somebody does that search, wouldn't it be great if we owned the top result because we're the brand and they could see our reviews and not just filtered Yelp reviews? So it was a fun experiment. That year, Meineke placed #1 in local search back in 2014 from Placeable. And a big component, a big part of what went into that was creating supportive subpages. Then we've got this whole idea of coupon offer and online to offline attribution. I still, for some reason, I don't see a lot of restaurants putting coupons on their location pages. And even better, if you can QR code them and work with some technology folks that know how to help you. So when somebody does snap that or get a unique QR code from a visit, you can attribute it specifically to the search term they searched. And when they go in and make a purchase, you'll know exactly how much revenue that search term generated for you. And very few, maybe less than 1% of multi-location businesses are doing this with their location pages. It's such a huge opportunity to get more data, but I get it. SEO takes the back seat to all the other initiatives that brands are doing to recover from a couple years of some really scary times. But really cool way, again, to make a difference. And it shows 0% because, again, no one's doing it. But really, really kind of fun idea. So here's that example I'd mentioned earlier, the conversion rate piece. There is no SEO without CRO. You all know that. Somebody gets to our webpage and they can't use it, or there's too much friction. They don't know what to do. It takes too long to load. They go back to Google. They choose a competitor. If that happens enough, Google starts to infer maybe we weren't a very helpful result. They keep coming back and choosing a different final URL. That's not what we want to happen. We want them to convert. The two things that worked really well, for restaurant chains, and IHOP's even gone another level recently with it. But we had start order and get directions. And we did this with IHOP. We had a $2 million weekend after we deployed start order. And this was mid-pandemic. Made such a difference because users, one, really didn't care about directions. And two, when they wanted to start an order, it wasn't easy to find where they would make that happen. So we made it front and center, and we added start order right there. And it made a huge difference. Test it. It's a floating button. Test it on a few dozen of your location pages and see the difference. Keep it simple. Location subpages, like the Meineke example I mentioned earlier, takeout, delivery. Here we've got restaurant jobs, and this works. If you do restaurant takeout in any city where there's an Applebee's or an IHOP, right, you're going to find one or both of those different franchises in the search results. These pages did exactly what we'd hoped that they would do, especially during a period where people weren't going into the restaurants and they wanted to order takeout or online because we were on lockdown. Made such a huge difference and kept the kitchen lights on in many cases. So really fun example of how to do this. There's a lot of other things that we identified that we were playing around with in the study, some of which didn't have any benefit whatsoever. You'll see that on the example, but there's just an idea of how many are out there to play around with. Here's some screenshots from the infographic we put together showing the ultimate local page based on the study. Here's where our location images go and the thumbnails, maybe even a video thumbnail over here. We've got name, address, phone number, and that H1 may also include our main keyword. So if we're IHOP, maybe it's IHOP breakfast restaurant and then the location. We've got our CTAs on desktop over here as an example, our hours of operation, as well as whether we're open or not. Social buttons for people who want to interact with that location in social media or look at their Foursquare, look at their Yelp, so on and so forth, look at their TripAdvisor. A great way to make it easier for them to leave reviews on those sites if they patronize them often. We also added something a little old school to this, and this was putting an actual contact card on here, which has some actual structured data behind it. And it also enables the user to basically add a contact card to their contacts on their phone. So phone number, name, all that stuff's already going to be there. So that'll help with like Apple Spotlight search and other things that people will do on their phones if it's already stored on their device. You've got your loyalty program opt-in, your Google Map embed. You've got a video here for that specific location, and then some content around the location. Over here on the right, you've got your amenities or your menu categories. You've got your native first-party review intake form. And then down here at the bottom, like you saw a moment ago, is that hyperlocal content. And this is the construct of what we found to be a scalable local landing page template. And you can see that from looking at Applebee's and IHOP as examples. So that was on page. Off page visibility, all that fun link building stuff. We're getting closer to the end, so bear with me. I have some really fun things here that made such a difference for a lot of the smaller multi-location clients that we're working with. And one of my favorites was working with Daryl Isaacs several years ago. We did this really innovative thing to drive more local citations and local links, such as events. So we did a lot of like CPR events, and we did a blood drive. We did a helmet giveaway, which I'll talk about in a second. Doing something where you get the community involved. Even maybe if it's just a toy drive. If that's the least that you can do for your locations, it's still something, and it's still something that you can go to the local chamber of commerce, and some of the government offices and get them to mention it on their website and in the newsletters. It's great for PR. The one CPR drive got him on the new CPR lessons that he did, got him on the news, as well as another one that we did. They do get links as well very easily, because the event will have an event page or an event section on a page if it's that location page's a specific event. And then you've got those rich results like we showed you earlier with the IHOP meal. So this was our favorite. This was the Helmets for Kids campaign. This was an attorney, personal injury attorney, and Helmet Safety Month, right? The goal here was, give to the community, give some helmets away to kids who are going to be riding their bike, and and try to give back a little bit. And in doing so, we went to neighboring businesses and we said, hey, would you be willing to participate? Most of the time they'd say, no, I don't have the time. No problem. Would you want to donate and help, chip in for some of these helmets and things we're doing? No, we really don't have money right now, right? That's normal response from a business. We're busy and we're broke. Well, geez, I know you really want to help us out. Could you perhaps get me in touch with your webmaster and help me, promote it on your website? We really just need them to list where the location is going to be at and where they can go to learn more, right? There's your citation and there's your link. And it worked exactly how we expected it to. It was a really successful and fun campaign, and it got them on TV, radio, and we got links from the TV site and everything. It was really cool. Veterans Day, also huge in restaurants. I don't know any restaurant that doesn't do something for Veterans Day, but we've seen links from military.com and va.gov. You can see some examples of some of the links that Veterans Day had earned by giving away free meals to veterans. Being a veteran myself, I definitely appreciate it. And every year it's my personal objective to try to get as high rankings as I can for the clients I work with that do Veterans Day specials. So it's always fun to do. And it's always great to see how many links we can earn from, doing something like that. You can see IHOP does something similar. They're giving free pancakes away on Pancake Day, and it's for charity. So when you come in and you get something to eat, part of what you come in or spend, goes toward charities, and that works exactly how we'd hoped it would. LA Times picked it up, Fortune picked it up, Business Insider, Fox News, San Francisco Gates, Today.com. Really kind of a fun thing to do. So I know business owners are bottom line driven, but if you can show them this, if you can walk them through these slides and say, this is how we got some really amazing links to a brand, so that we don't need a link builder calling every day saying, can I guest blog post for you? It's so much more effective. Other things that we did, like with public storage, we took a ton of question filters that we had from different keyword tools that we were using, and we came up with specific how-tos on moving, how to pack glassware, how to move a refrigerator, how to store your car for winter, How big of a storage unit do I need? We found, I think, 12 primary, really high search volume keywords, and we rented a green screen studio for the day, hired some film students to come in, and one really funny film student who made it really much more enjoyable and gave it a little bit of a theme. We threw some 80s music on it, and it was just a really fun exercise to create content that addressed how-to keywords around our industry. And we got some featured snippets from it at the time. We also got some links when people referenced it for theirs. And it was just really great free PR. So some cool ways to use upper funnel content married to really rich media, not just an article. Don't order an article and say, oh, Wiidman told me to do this. Really put time and energy into creating something that is fun and amazing and different and hasn't been done before. Featured answers, right? If you want that featured answer, looking at off-page and authority signals and EEAT and all that, here's some ways that you can do that. Your featured summary at the top of your page hopefully is 375 characters or less, and you're syndicating it out to all your social channels, right? Your Facebook, your images that are on that page, you can share across image sharing sites and mention that paragraph or short list that you want to be a featured answer. The more that syndication happens, the more we see the featured answer start to appear. You can do your social media posts. You can pick up Google alerts. So going back to this example, how to pack glassware, if a Google alert, actually I think about 100 Google alerts were set up on this one, when somebody says, I need tips on how to pack glassware, how do you pack glassware? And every time that would get picked up, someone would reach out and respond and say, hey, we wrote an article and have a video on that you might be interested in, and here's a summary, and you drop your summary paragraph in. Worked exactly as expected, and bam, at the time, featured answer. This, by the way, will still show up, from my understanding, below the generative search results in the Google Labs experiment. All right, so we talked about data. We talked about on-page SEO. We talked about off-page and looking at ways that we can get links and earn visibility off our website and get local citations. Now we'll talk about search behavior signals, the whole get people to search and click on the SEO expert to boost rankings, but without telling them to do it, enticing them to do it with stronger headlines and richer results. So here's some of our best practices, right? Do the following, right? Make sure you're using unique titles. You can draw inspiration from ChatGPT, write a prompt and say, write me a click enticing, unique, maybe humorous, title tag that's, under so many characters or under so many pixels. And you can do the same thing for meta description. Make sure it's super helpful and descriptive. And our hope is, again, to get those rich results. So anything that we can use, whether it's event markup, FAQ markup, image markup, etc., anything that we can use to get rich results will make a huge difference. So our little example, use these title tag principles. And those title tag principles are including the keyword we want to rank for, a call to action, and unique selling proposition. With Skechers, we changed every title tag across the site in a test to include the lowest price in a category, starting at and the lowest price. And our click-through rate went through the roof because people saw the price, and the price transparency made them click. And they got to the category, they sorted by price, and they found that lowest price. So we weren't being misleading. We were saying this is the lowest price, and it worked. Our click-through rates went through the roof. Here's an example of where we use comfortable and casual as opposed to just men's shoes. And then in this example, you can see $5 menus, our keyword, limited time, it gives us a little bit of that scarcity mentality. So there's something else you can test is basic sales principles, urgency, scarcity, reciprocity, so on and so forth. So last part of this is really talking about ratings and reviews. And this is a tough one, especially in businesses that don't tend to get good reviews. Auto repair shops, for example, don't always get good reviews. So it's really important that we create a program that's manageable. And whether we've got to do a share and a share card to say, I'm glad you had a great experience. Love it if you shared it, online somewhere. And here's some places you can do that. And a care card where, look, I understand you seem a little frustrated. You didn't have a really good experience. I want to make it right. Here's a care card. Please call my manager. Number's on it. And, tell them everything that happened so that I can do better next time. They'll roll out the red carpet. They'll give them a free oil change or whatever it happens to be. And hopefully it will prevent them from going out to Yelp or somewhere else and leaving a poor review. and then next, invoking programs so that everybody's involved in it. Hey, did you have a great dinner today? Oh, you did fantastic. I hope you share it online later. Hint, hint, right? Whatever you've got to do, to make sure that clients who did have a good experience, share their experience with others, and don't be afraid to give them clues as to what you want them to say. It would really help us, because we're trying to get the word out about our restaurant a little bit more and how we're getting better and we're changing. If you could share a little bit about what you ate and what you liked about it and what your favorite foods were, or share a bit about what service you had when you were here, if you're getting an oil change, that would help people know that we do those services. And Google will pick that up in their reviews as long as they search for the listing and add their review manually, organically, and you don't just guide them straight to the review. That could make an impact for you. How do we measure success with all this? It's really important. KPIs. I'll show you a KPI sheet in a second, but the way that we hold our team accountable, we sit down once a month and we ask ourselves, did we improve the accuracy of the business data in those business databases, search engines, navigation engines, local social, city directories, so on and so forth? Did we improve the technical performance and conversion rates of our pages? Did we improve our name, address, phone number visibility off the website? Are we improving the quality, quantity, and velocity of ratings as compared to the competition, our local competition? And of course, stakeholders want to know, what's our organic local traffic look like, and how is it hitting our KPI goals? And for some, it's going to be revenue. If you do online orders and takeout or order ahead, it's a great way to be able to save some transactions, at the location itself, and track more of the attribution of where that sale came from. So here are some things you can continue testing. I mentioned some markup earlier. I added a few more to the slide. You can see that example up here where there's questions and answers. These aren't our clients. It's just a screenshot I grabbed. FAQ page is on there. Rating is on there, which will give you some of those star ratings. The video object and image object. I'm not really seeing the video thumbnails anymore. I think I saw a post about Google removing video thumbnails if the page itself isn't specifically about the video. It's still helpful. It still gives you some extra metadata that you can play with to put some search terms in. So it's still use video object. Just don't expect to get that thumbnail like we used to. Now, emojis are interesting. I think if you have an ice cream shop and you want to put an ice cream emoji in there, I think that's great. But if you're a law firm or an accountant, emojis probably aren't going to be very appropriate. And it may reduce the clicks you receive, and Google may just put their own title in or just exclude it altogether. But I've seen some pretty fun examples of CTR going up. Calls to action and value proposition, like we mentioned in our titles, price transparency, like what we did with Skechers. And then you can crowdsource feedback. We use Mechanical Turk quite a bit, where we'll go out and ask, which of these listings in a search result would you click on and why? And then we do it again. Now, which one would you click on and why? And we keep doing it until our listing is the one that gets a 70% or higher probability of being clicked on. And we did talk to the folks at TripAdvisor in a podcast, and they said we put FAQ page on everything, like Frank's Red Hot. All right. In summary, going back to kind of bookending the conversation, taking those objectives that we talked about. My suggestion, my next steps for you would be choosing that right data management platform. I gave you a few ideas. There's plenty more I can share with you after if you'd like. Make sure you do get the best rate and that they're being transparent about everything. Schedule some tests, for what you want to do on the on-page SEO. Maybe it's the mobile sticky buttons we talked about. Maybe it's implementing our infographic design as a test to see how pages could perform. Maybe it's testing one of those 360 videos. Start to schedule events and summary, your short summary syndication for what you're doing off the website, so that you're not just getting links and citations, but also featured answers. So sharing those featured answers where we can, how we can help the brand at a higher level, and again, improve some of those EEAT signals. And then lastly is test some of that search behavior testing. I just showed you some examples and ways that you could do that. It can make a huge difference in the long term and make a significant impact to your keyword rankings over time. Measuring keyword rankings at scale. You're all using some kind of tool to measure with. This was a screenshot from an old Conductor screenshot. It was one of my favorites. This was a specific category. I think it was on Skechers. And where we started in the gray was where we didn't appear at all. Every month we'd watch and monitor to watch that gray start to go away and see us go to page 4, page 3, page 2, page 1, and a lot of listings ended up in the first 3 results over time. It's really fun to watch. Lots of tools out there you're already playing with: SEMrush, Conductor, Bright Edge, Search Metrics, what is it, SEO Clarity. There's a ton of really great tools out there that you can explore and goof around with. So here's that KPI tracker I mentioned. Make sure you get this bit.ly link up here and then make this your own. So make a copy of this. This breaks out some of the different disciplines, we talked briefly about, from earning links. And this gives Conductors a method or an example, but you could use SEMrush for this or Ahrefs. Linking root domains from 2 sources, whether it's Ahrefs and SEMrush, or Majestic or something else. Have 2 different data sources so that you can kind of trend both of them. And then tech. Look at those tech scores every month. Set your goal. Hey, right now our tech score is at 60. Great. Our goal is to get to 90 by the end of the year. Fantastic. We can track that progress over time and hold each other accountable every month. Guys, we're not going to hit our KPI goal if we can't get this core web vital thing fixed. If we can't fix the first input delay or the cumulative layout shift, we're not going to hit our KPI goal. So really great way to measure and monitor how you're doing. The green is what key stakeholders really care the most about. They care the most about our average position. They care the most about a share of voice or a market share for the different keyword segments or business objectives they have. As SEOs, we also care about what the competition's market share looks like, because if they suddenly get a big piece of that market share, we'll want to know and we'll want to reverse engineer what they're up to. You might also track Yelp if you're doing location or multi-location, revenue from Yelp as well. And then we can take in our Google, still says Google My Business, Google Business Profile data. So calls, directions, website clicks, etc. And then down at the bottom, you can see we also segmented our Google Maps from organic. We do that using UTM codes. We use a medium of organic, exactly like the organic medium, all lowercase. We'll use a campaign of something such as Google Maps. In the past, it was Google My Business, Google Business Profile, a billion ways, Google Places. So just keep it Google Maps, Google_Maps. And that way you never have to worry about them, how they keep changing everything. And then we would use the source as Google lowercase. So that way we can go into organic in Google Analytics and then add a secondary, well, it's GA4 now, but you can still see what that secondary breakout is and see the difference between the not set, which would be just your plain organic web search, and your Google Maps, and do that segmentation. And then that's basically the KPI tracker. Make it your own. There's another data tab that'll compare year versus year, just so you can see a little bit of seasonality. But this is what's worked for us. We take this data, we put it into Looker Studio, and we get much more rich, pretty looking dashboards than what you'd see in Google Sheets. And that's my presentation on scaling multi-location. Thank you for hanging out with me.
Oh my gosh.
Will this guy ever shut up? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
tell you
No.
what, terrible, right?
I want you to keep talking because you have. Okay, so just so everybody knows, before we opened up, he said, "Oh, it's going to be a boring presentation." Not even. Not even. You gave so much value and so much gold in there that I sure hope people really, really, I hope they go back and listen to this again, because I certainly am. I don't know if you can see, Steve, but there are a few questions, and I don't know if Casey, are you going to ask the questions that people?
Correct, Chris.
Yeah, we're ready to go. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be quiet. I just want you to understand, extremely valuable, golden. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, Steve, again, they already know what I've known for years. You are an extremely good speaker, and this is an extremely well put together
Thank you.
and very helpful presentation. So anyone who's on the call who does anything with local SEO, this is well worth your time. We had some great questions come in, so let's get to those quickly.
Let's do it.
Someone had asked here, is there a way to improve better if your business isn't as close to the user as a competitor, given the proximity element of the local algorithm? What could you do to overcome that if you weren't, for example, the closest to the person who's looking for you?
Yeah, they almost always show proximity. Like there's a Starbucks like walking distance, and they're always going to show up first for the most part. But you can dominate the rest of the results with organic search. with doing more community events and things that enable you to have more visibility in the search results. You can get some of the better click-through rates, even if they are number one and you're number two, and you've got better ratings and reviews. Even if they are number one, you could still get more of the clicks because you stand out, and they see some of the keywords that they were searching for in the reviews and descriptions of what they see in the results.
Absolutely.
So I think you definitely have an opportunity, and then you can also take the paid area as well. So you've got paid results, probably right in the generative search results soon. You've got the local maps paid ad, and then you've got a local maps listing. Even if it's number two, you'll have one in the paid ad, and then three, if you look at all three of them together, and then you can have your listing in the local area. The other thing that you can do is some barnacle SEO. Sometimes if you can't beat them, join them. So you could do a little bit of extra work to doing some SEO to your profile pages on TripAdvisor and Yelp and Restaurant G or wherever it happens to be, so that when those listings do show up, it's your page in their listing that shows up in the search results, or at least is mentioned in context. I've seen 9 out of 10 of the results be one brand sometimes, even though another brand is number one in the maps right there.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
The page. Yeah.
So we can't just review Bomb, the other listing, and go in and add our name to their reviews whenever possible.
So Jim Rohn said something I really liked. He says that you don't have to do extraordinary things to be successful. You only have to do ordinary things extraordinarily well. And I believe that if every month we're holding ourselves accountable to those 4 key areas of local search, that every month we're going to see growth.
Fantastic. Good point. What about this? Cameron had a really interesting point here about adding an image review option for customers for each location. Is that a good idea? Is that going to provide some meaningful influence on the local
review
spectrum?
Option?
Adding an image review option for customers for each location. Maybe Cameron could, maybe he could provide a little bit more information. I don't know. Maybe if you wanted to add photos, for example, maybe he means photo reviews, adding extra photos.
We did this video. It's kind of this cheesy little thing, but if you contact me after, I'll send you a link to it. And I was showing some of I think it was for some of the attorneys that we were supporting, how the attorney and staff and legal personnel there could participate in local search by getting directions using Google Maps. And then when they arrive, clicking when it says, "Are you here?" hit yes. And then taking pictures and uploading them. Every day that you go, take a different picture from a different angle of a different thing, of a different moment, of a different experience. So that every day there's activity that's happening, showing and proving to Google through their NFC technology that, hey, I'm actually here, and here's a picture, and here's a video. And there's enough of that activity. If it happens every day, and there's 5 people that go to the office, that's a lot of activity that happens throughout the week with just the team members alone, not counting the customers and consumers who are searching. So there could be some benefit there by getting them involved in that process and having them take pictures and images when they go in. Maybe even if you've got a Pixel, do one of those cool little 360s yourself.
Gotcha.
I do them now whenever we go on vacation, I'm 360ing like crazy.
I'm sure kids love that.
Yeah, it's fun. Oh yeah.
Now,
Dad always has to do these stupid 360 videos. It's so embarrassing.
Right, I'm sure. So we've already, some of us, or maybe some more than others, have actually decided that we have to move to GA4 finally. Have you found that there's any issues with regards to local search attribution between what you had available in GA3 to now what you're stuck with GA4? What would you provide as some differences that local SEO practitioners might be having to delve into a little bit more in that regard?
Yeah, well, so GA4 isn't an upgrade from Google Analytics Universal. It's a new platform. And so you literally have to learn a new platform, a new way to find information. And you're not going to find the information in the same way that we did in Universal. You can't just go to acquisition, click organic, create a secondary dimension and work with it the same way we did. You can't find keywords like that anymore. You've got to go to engagement. So the way that we've been encouraging our clients to get on board with GA4, one, making sure that we ported over all the actions and events and conversions that we want to be tracking, and make sure everything's tracking accurately and that we're still getting that data, even though it's measured a little bit differently. And using Looker Studio as a place to create our reports, as opposed to finding and trying to drill into GA4 to get a report that you're never going to be able to get. So use Looker Studio as a vehicle toward getting the reports you want. And what you'll have isn't just the same as what you'll get from Universal Analytics. It'll be better because now you'll have more customization and beautification of it. You can even output your information to Google Slides. Some of the reports that we're doing now, the monthly reports come specifically from Looker Studio and in Google Slide format. There is a Looker Studio template I found that says emulate Universal Analytics. So if you really are just, I like it this way, I don't want to change, Looker Studio, use the template that emulates Universal Analytics, and you can get closer to what you're looking for.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Steve, again, thank you so much for presenting for us for free. It was a great presentation. We hope to have you at State of Search sometime soon. For everyone else on the call, just a reminder that next month's presenter is Ashley Segura. She is with Top Hat Rank Content. Our next presentation is going to be Wednesday, the 23rd of August, again at 5 p.m. Pacific. So make sure you write that down. And Steve, again, thank you so much. And we wish all of you a great evening, and we'll speak again very soon. Thanks, you.
Guys. Thanks for having me.
That was fantastic, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Good night, everyone.
It was phenomenal. And everybody, I encourage you to rewatch this one more time, 5 more times, because there were so many golden nuggets. So share it with your friends. And we so appreciate you, Steve. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks again, Steve.